So, I did a little building off camera. We have expanded Codtown a little bit with a little herb farming area and this upside down ship acting as a bridge. Next on the agenda is to head to the dungeon.
Zephyrfish, before we ask the others for information on Cthulu, it may be worthwhile exploring this dungeon. I can feel there is dark power in this place.
So the main reason we're headed here is to get the tally counter accessory so we can later craft the shell phone. I also want to find the jungle chest so we can have an easier time getting the piranha gun in hard mode. So as usual, I deploy the fish bombs. Now they won't damage dungeon bricks, but they will damage cracked dungeon bricks. I discover my new favourite thing in Terraria, which is nuking mobs with bombfish. And that will come into play later when I decide to kill a boss with them. I start encountering dark casters, which are mobs that I had previously blocked from my mind lest I go insane because of how annoying they are. I get my sweet vengeance and nuke one into oblivion, and then nuke all his friends for good measure. I also use the bombfish to deal with all the annoying spikes in the dungeon. And then I come across the ice biome chest. And then I discover the Pringles slime in a chest and rescue him. And yes, I know he's not actually called that, but you can't tell me he doesn't look like the Pringles guy. Come on. After saving him from a pair of dark casters, I continue my way through the dungeon, taking the time to dismantle any skeletons in the hope that they may drop the tally counter. Then I find this poor guy stuck behind a door and decide to open it for him.
It's me, Guppy the Gallant, and I say like, subscribe, and comment.
I almost die and have to magic mirror out of the dungeon. I won't show it, it's too shameful. But on the upside, I did manage to find a tally counter, but there is still plenty of the dungeon left to explore, and the jungle chest is yet to be found, so I return. I bomb some skeletons, loot some chests, and then, yeah. I do manage to get quite a lot of loot this time, but it's still not enough for my insatiable loot appetite, so I return again. I quickly find the desert chest, and at this point I genuinely believe that the game is simply mocking me. I do some more looting, and as you can see by my overly excessive list of buffs, I'm not taking any chances this time. However, it is at this point that I become way too liberal with the bombfish, and detonate myself multiple times. Don't forget, kids at home, always handle explosives with caution. The mockery continues as I stumble upon the hollow chest. And finally, I find it.
There is a fish in this chest. I can feel it. Zephyrfish, remind me to return here once we have the key.
I also find the corrupt chest, and then an alchemy lab. Alchemy labs allow you to craft potions, and there is a chance of not consuming the potion materials, which is great considering we just consumed about 6 gallons of potions before entering here. After obtaining everything we need from the dungeon, we return to the surface to check out the loot, only to be invaded by a goblin army. Whilst our first goblin army may have been challenging, this one is simply a meat grinder for the goblins. With the molten armor and the dryad swirly green magical thing, I carve through the goblins like butter. It's not long before the goblins are completely annihilated, and I can finally check out all the loot I got from the dungeon. I got a total of 4 tally counters, some shadow keys, and a cobalt shield. Now we're only missing one ingredient before we can make the shell phone, and that is the compass. Luckily for us, the compass is very easy to farm. I place some piranha statues down. I place a 1/4 second timer down and wire it up to the statues. Then I place down a bewitching table I got from the dungeon to increase my summon limit. We activate the timer, use the bewitching table, and then summon some vampire frogs. Now, piranhas spawned from statues only have around a 0.27% chance to drop the compass, which is roughly 1 in 375, but the summons kill them so quickly it doesn't even matter. And after less than a minute of farming, the compass drops. I return to base, craft a GPS and a Rec 3000, then create the PDA, the cell phone, and finally, the shell phone. I then return to the underworld to use up all the shadow keys we got from the dungeon. I do this because I am in fact stupid and mistakenly believe that hell chests have a chance of containing the lava charm, which I'll need to upgrade my boots. So I go on a completely misguided hell chest opening spree. In my desperation, I also try opening any obsidian lockboxes I have, because they share a similar loot pool with the chests. I unlock almost every chest in the underworld before realizing that I am an idiot.
Zephyrfish, our search of the dungeon was fruitless. Somebody must have information. I will begin a formal announcement at once. Attention, all residents of Codtown. If you have any information regarding the location of Cthulu, please report to Container 4 for questioning. Guide. I didn't expect to find you here, although I am in need of some guidance. What information do you have regarding Cthulhu's return to Earth? You speak of a prophecy, but that prophecy will cost you a great deal, and you will not reveal the details of that prophecy until I complete a task. Of course, everything comes with a price. I must destroy a giant tapeworm in the corruption, and then a one-eyed deer? Sounds easy enough. I'll return once they're both dead. What's that? You ask why I must know if I'm a fish or a man? Because where I'm from, there is a prophecy as well. The fish that was foretold. The fish that will end the tyranny of the zombie mermen once and for all. For a long time, I thought I was that fish. But lately, I wonder if I'm even a fish at all.
And one thing I want to do before hard mode is find the shimmer. You can get quite a lot of permanent buffs from throwing different items into it, so I grab a bunch of those items and then set out to find the shimmer. Now the shimmer is always on the same side of the world as the jungle, and at least from the worlds I've seen it's usually pretty close to the ocean, so I'm just going to bombfish this entire place until I find it. Several explosions later, I discover this little cute underwater tent, and several more explosions after that, I stumble across the shimmer. I use my sponge to clear the water and drop down.
Zephyrfish, what is this? I sense magic here, old and powerful. Truly, it must have been gods that inhabited this place.
I decided to catch a bunch of failings which I can later use in builds. I do a little bit more exploring and then nearly get crushed by a boulder. Then, whilst catching more failings, a bat royally screws me over and causes me to fall into the shimmer. Oh my god, are you kidding me? And now we're in some random cave. Wonderful. Now it's time to get shimmering. You can shimmer herb bags into worm cans, which are useful to us because we want golden worms, and they have a 5% drop chance from worm cans. We then drop our pink pearl into the shimmer to get the galaxy pearl, which permanently increases our luck, and then we get screwed again. I genuinely hate this place. After making the long trip back, we throw in a heart crystal to get the vital crystal, which gives us permanently increased life regeneration. We then throw in a piece of fruit so we can get the ambrosia, which permanently increases our mining and placement speed by 5%. We continue to get harassed by the shimmer mobs before popping open our worm cans in search of a golden worm. Luckily, we do get one, and then throw it into the shimmer to transform it into the gummy worm for a permanent 3% boost to our fishing power. I pop all my magical shimmer items, and next up on the agenda is to build an NPC house down here. Shimmer does transform NPCs into different sprites, and I want the angler to transform into his kappa form. Since kappas are basically humanoid turtles, I think he will fit in a lot more in Codtown. So I rig up some wiring which will allow me to actuate the blocks underneath him and drop him into the shimmer, and then I assign him to the house. We drop him into the shimmer and voila! We now have a kappa resident of Codtown. And here he is actually in Codtown, and I really do love his shimmered form. It's probably one of my favourites out of all the NPCs. We are interrupted by a slime rain, but I've got a pretty good system going on here. Slimes float on water, so they're exceptionally easy to kill when you have a lava shark. And I decided to take on King Slime again, just to see how easily he is now with our new buffs and our new equipment. The battle takes us to the ocean tunnel, which is pretty epic. In the end, we do kill him, but it was more of a close call than I expected it to be. We finish off the straggler slimes and then travel to the corruption to kill the Eater of Worlds. I want to fight him underwater as well, so I deploy the bombfish to blast a huge cavern that we can later fill up with water. We finish the cavern and this thing is huge.
I hope you can swim. You may be the Eater of Worlds, but you're just an overgrown worm to me, and I eat worms for breakfast.
I begin the very tedious chore of filling the cavern with water. I decide to use wet bombs instead, which is only slightly less tedious. Maybe even more so with these guys. But they get what they deserve. I then explode 2 shadow orbs to begin the fight. The Eater of Worlds immediately surrounds us and uses us to play pinball. But I have gone into this fight with a plan. I want to kill the Eater of Worlds with bombfish. Now, chests and the tiles they're placed on cannot be destroyed if there is something inside them, so I created this little platform with chests so I can periodically stick a bunch of bombfish onto it and destroy the Eater of Worlds. And as you can see, it's surprisingly effective. But one downside is it splits the Eater of Worlds into multiple worms really quickly, which means there are about 10 worms flying all over the place, going in different directions, which makes it incredibly hard to dodge. We finally nuke the Eater of Worlds and a meteorite lands immediately. We quickly discover it, and it turns out that it landed right near our honey fishing area, which is a bit of a problem because now we'll have meteor heads constantly spawning here, and we will have to do something about that at some point. We head to the Sanctum of the Deep for the treasure bag, mainly so we can get more shadow scale so we can craft both the void bag and the void vault. And then we head to the nearest demon altar to craft them. Since we've defeated a new boss, it is now a Lantern Knight. and I just had to show you Codtown on a lantern night. It looks beautiful. It just really goes well with that background. We then return to lava fishing. I managed to get 2 bottomless lava buckets and 20 obsidian crates. Now we're doing this because we want the lava charm, so we can use that to craft lava waders and then terra spark boots. It does have a 5% drop chance from obsidian crates, so I start popping them open. It takes us around 40 crates before we finally get it, so we return to base to craft the obsidian skull, the obsidian water walking boots, and then the lava waders. Then we craft the terra spark boots and travel to the ice biome. I pitifully attempt to get Deerclops to spawn by waiting for a blizzard in the ice biome at around midnight, but I eventually give up and head to the underground ice biome to collect some Flink's fur so I can craft the deer thing to summon Deerclops manually. We encounter our second ever lost girl / nymph, but we don't fall for her tricks. Guppy is no simp, and we quickly dispatch her. We poach a few more Flinkses for their fur, and then head to a demon altar to craft the deer thing.
Come forth, one-eyed deer, and prepare to meet your end.
I start the fight, and this is the first time I've ever fought Deerclops, so I've no idea what to expect, and I've no idea about any of his attacks or his attack patterns. But I eventually learn to just run in between his legs for his ice attack, and then dodge the third one because it shoots in both directions. If you get too far away from him, he starts doing the whole shadow hand nonsense. I eventually take him down and get some sweet loot. Not that I can use any of it because, well, it's just not fishy enough. Now it's time to return to the guide.
Guide, I have slain the giant tapeworm and the one-eyed deer. As per our agreement, divulge any information regarding the prophecy and Cthulhu's return to Earth. I must cast a voodoo doll into the fiery pits of the underworld to summon a demon of flesh and induce the great change? And you're sure that this is the proper course of events? Very well. What's that? You will die? I understand. For if I am the fish that was foretold, it is prophesied that I must die as well. But guide, your sacrifice will not be in vain. I will do as you say. I will travel to the burning abyss and cast the doll into the flame. Come forth, demon! For Codtown! For the guide! For Sardine!